Weddings are supposed to be loud. Music, laughter, clinking glasses, people calling out names they haven't said in years. That's what I expected when I walked into the reception hall that afternoon. What I didn't expect, what still echoes in my head years later, was how quiet everything suddenly became. When she leaned in and whispered those words to me, words that changed everything. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start where it really began. I raised my son alone. That's not a dramatic exaggeration. His mother passed away when he was 7. An accident on a rain slick. Highway that took her life and left me standing in a hospital hallway, holding a jacket that still smelled like her perfume. From that moment on, it was just the two of us. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. I missed sleep. I missed meals. I missed parties, vacations, and most of my own life. But I never missed a single one of his school plays. Never missed a parent-teacher meeting. Never missed a birthday. He grew up kind, quiet, thoughtful, the kind of boy who held doors open and said thank you without being reminded, the kind of boy who would give you the last slice of pizza and insist he wasn't hungry. So when he told me he'd met someone special, I was happy for him. Genuinely. Her name was Vanessa. She was beautiful in the way magazines like: polished smile, carefully messy hair, confidence that filled a room before she spoke. She worked in consulting, though every time I asked what that meant exactly, the answer somehow never got clearer. Still, she made my son happy. Or at least that's what I told myself. The first time I met her, she shook my hand like she was closing a business deal. Firm grip, eye contact that lingered just a second too long, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Nice to finally meet you," she said. "I've heard so much." Something about the way she said it made me uncomfortable, but I brushed it off. I didn't want to be that father, the suspicious one, the overprotective one who can't let go. My son was a grown man, successful, independent. He'd built a solid career in tech, owned his own home, paid his own bills. If he loved her, that should have been enough. Still, little things added up. Vanessa always asked about money. Not directly, never crude, but always circling it. "How long have you been at your company? Is the stock compensation good? Do promotions come quickly in your field?" She laughed when she asked, like it was all harmless curiosity. But I noticed how closely she listened to the answers. When they got engaged, she insisted on handling most of the wedding planning herself. She chose the venue, the guest list, the catering. She spoke to vendors with the authority of someone, spending money she was already sure belonged to her. My son didn't seem to mind. He said it made her happy. "She just likes being in control," he told me once, smiling. "You know how some people are." I nodded. But I knew something was wrong. A week before the wedding, she asked to meet me alone, just the two of us. She suggested a quiet cafe near the venue. When I arrived, she was already seated, scrolling through her phone. She didn't stand when I approached, just looked up, smiled briefly, and gestured to the chair across from her. "Thanks for coming," she said. "I won't take much of your time." The way she said it made it sound like a favor. She got straight to the point. "I think it's important we set some boundaries," she said, folding her hands neatly on the table. "Once we're married, things will change." I waited. She continued, "Your son and I will be building our own family, our own future. And that means less interference." "Interference?" I asked calmly. She smiled again, that same polished smile. "You're very involved in his life." I almost laughed. I wanted to tell her about the nights I slept in my car so he could have a bedroom, about the overtime shifts, about the college tuition I paid quietly, without asking for thanks. But I didn't. I simply said, "He's my son." "Yes," she replied, "but once we're married, his income is ours, and our priorities come first." There it was. Not love, not partnership, ownership. I studied her face. She was watching me closely now, gauging my reaction. "And what exactly are you asking?" I said. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "I think it would be best if you stepped back. Financially, emotionally. Let us handle things. That includes any future inheritance discussions, advice, or—" She paused, then added casually, "expectations of involvement." I realized then that this wasn't a conversation. It was a declaration. Before I could respond, she stood up, smoothed her coat, and said, "I'm glad we talked." I think we understand each other now. She paid for her coffee. Didn't look back. I didn't tell my son. That might sound weak, cowardly even, but I didn't want to plant doubt on the eve of his wedding. I didn't want to be the reason he questioned the biggest decision of his life. I told myself maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was misreading her. Maybe she was just nervous, stressed, trying to assert control in a moment when everything felt overwhelming. I told myself a lot of things. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. Something gnawed at me, a feeling I couldn't shake. I replayed every conversation, every glance, every subtle comment she'd made over the past year. And then I remembered something important, something she didn't know I knew. A few months earlier, my son had asked me for advice about finances. He'd been worried. Said Vanessa wanted to combine everything immediately, accounts, investments, even assets he'd built long before he met her. I trust her, he'd said. But something felt fast. I didn't tell him what to do. I just suggested he document everything, keep records, be transparent, protect himself just in case. He listened. My son always listened. That night I opened my laptop, and I started organizing files. The wedding day arrived bright and perfect. Blue sky, soft breeze, white chairs lined up in perfect rows, guests smiling, laughing, unaware of the tension coiled tight inside my chest. Vanessa looked stunning, radiant, confident, like someone who believed the world was finally aligning, exactly the way she'd planned. Before the ceremony, she pulled me aside, just like at the cafe. This time, her smile was sharper. She leaned in close enough that no one else could hear. And that's when she whispered the words I will never forget. Once we're married, she said softly, his income is mine, and you'll never see your son again. I felt the room go silent, not around us. Inside me, I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I didn't see beauty or confidence. I saw certainty. She believed she had already won. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I didn't warn her. I simply nodded and stayed calm, because the PowerPoint was already saved, and she had no idea what was coming. The ceremony was flawless. That was the cruel part. Vanessa walked down the aisle like she owned the world, chin lifted, smile serene, every step perfectly timed to the music. Guests sighed. Cameras flashed. Someone whispered, "She looks like a movie star." My son stood at the altar, hands clasped, eyes locked on her like she was the answer to every question he'd ever had. He looked proud, nervous, happy. I smiled back at him when he glanced my way. Inside, I was steady as stone, because when you've lived long enough, when you've lost enough, you learn something important. The loudest revenge is never shouted. It's revealed. The vows were exchanged. Applause filled the air. They kissed. People stood cheering, and just like that, it was done, or so everyone thought. The reception hall buzzed with celebration. Crystal glasses clinked. Music thumped softly beneath laughter. Vanessa moved through the room like a queen greeting her subjects, accepting compliments as if they were overdue payments. She barely acknowledged me. That didn't bother me. I was busy watching how she guided my son by the elbow when people spoke to him too long, how she interrupted his stories to correct details that didn't matter, how she laughed a little too loudly whenever someone mentioned his job, his success, his future. At one point, she approached me with a glass of champagne. "To new beginnings," she said sweetly. I raised my glass. "To clarity." She frowned slightly, then laughed it off. "You're funny." She had no idea. Dinner was served. Speeches were scheduled. The MC tapped the microphone and announced that a few special people would be saying words in honor of the newlyweds. The maid of honor went first, then a co-worker of my son's, then Vanessa's mother, who cried dramatically and thanked my son for giving her daughter the life she deserved. I noticed Vanessa nodding along. Then the MC cleared his throat. "And now," he said, scanning the room, "we have a surprise speaker. The groom's father!" Vanessa's head snapped toward me. Her smile froze. This was not on the schedule. I stood slowly, adjusting my jacket. The room quieted. A few people clapped politely. My son looked surprised, but pleased. "Dad," he said softly, "you didn't tell me you were speaking." "I wanted it to be special," I replied. Vanessa leaned in toward him, whispering urgently. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the tension tighten her jaw. I walked to the front of the room. The microphone felt heavier than it should have. I looked out at the crowd. Friends, family, colleagues, strangers. 93 guests, give or take. All smiling. All expecting something warm, sentimental. I gave them that at first. I'm not very good at speeches, I began. So I decided to prepare something visual. A murmur rippled through the room. I gestured to the DJ booth. If you don't mind. The screen behind me flickered to life. Vanessa's champagne glass slipped slightly in her hand. Slide one appeared. Love and Trust, a Foundation. A harmless title. Soft background, clean font. I heard a few approving murmurs. This, I said, is about transparency, about honesty, about building a future on truth. Vanessa relaxed, just a little. Slide 2, Financial Timeline. A chart appeared. Dates, accounts, contributions. Her eyes narrowed. I continued calmly. My son is generous. Always has been. He believes in partnership, in sharing. So when he was asked to combine assets early, he did because he trusted. Vanessa shifted in her chair. Slide 3. Email screenshots. Redacted names, but unmistakable phrasing. Once we're married, everything becomes ours anyway. No need to wait. It's just paperwork. The room went quiet. I heard a fork clatter against a plate. Vanessa's smile vanished. She leaned toward my son, whispering furiously now. His brow furrowed as he stared at the screen. I didn't look at them. I kept going. Slide 4. Private messages. Text exchanges appeared. Time-stamped. Contextual. He won't say no. His father won't matter once we're married. I'll handle him. A gasp rippled through the room. Vanessa stood halfway up from her chair. Turn this off, she hissed. I raised a hand gently. Please, just a moment longer. She looked at me then, not with confidence. Not with control, but with something closer to panic. Slide 5. The ask. A single line of text bolded. I need $120,000 up front. It's only fair. Beside it, a response from my son. Why? Then her reply. Because once we're married, it's mine anyway. Silence. Not awkward silence. Heavy silence. The kind that presses against your ears. I finally turned to look at my son. His face had gone pale. Dad, he said slowly. Is this real? I met his eyes. Every word. Vanessa exploded. This is a lie, she shouted. This is manipulated. You edited this. You planned this. She looked around wildly, searching for allies. No one spoke. Her mother stood frozen. Her friends stared at their laps. Even the MC had backed away from the microphone. My son stood up. Vanessa, he said quietly. Did you say these things? She grabbed his arm. You know I didn't mean it like that. They're taking it out of context. I clicked to the next slide. Audio transcript. I didn't play the recording. I didn't have to. The transcript alone was enough. Her words, her tone, her certainty. Once we're married, his income is mine. His father won't be around. Vanessa's knees buckled slightly. You recorded me? She whispered. I shook my head. No, you sent voice notes. You forgot that clouds remember what people don't. My son stepped back from her. The distance between them felt wider than the room. Is this why you were so insistent? He asked. About the accounts? About cutting people off? She reached for him again. I was protecting us. No, he said. You were controlling me. A tear slid down her cheek. Please, she said. Not like this. Not in front of everyone. I spoke one last time. You chose the audience, I said gently. I just brought the truth. Security moved closer, not because I asked, but because the venue manager had seen enough. Vanessa's mother rushed forward, arguing, pleading, but it didn't matter. My son removed his wedding ring. The sound it made when he placed it on the table was louder than any scream. I'm sorry, he said, but this ends now. Vanessa collapsed into a chair. The screen went dark. The music never resumed. People didn't know where to look. Some stared at me like I was a monster, others like I was a hero. Most just looked stunned. I walked back to my seat. My son followed. He didn't say anything at first. Then he sat down beside me and whispered, Thank you. I put my hand over his. This isn't the end, I said softly. It's the escape. He nodded. Across the room, Vanessa watched us. Her certainty was gone. So was her power, and she still didn't know the worst part. The room never recovered. You can restart music. You can refill drinks. You can even laugh again if someone tells a joke loud enough. But you can't rewind a truth. Once it's been seen by 93 pairs of eyes at the same time, people began leaving in clusters, quiet, awkward goodbyes. Chairs scraped softly against the floor. Someone muttered, "I'm so sorry," without making eye contact. Another whispered, "I had no idea," like that somehow helped. Vanessa stayed seated. She stared at the blank screen as if it might change its mind and show a different story if she waited long enough. My son didn't look at her again. He stood, straightened his jacket, and addressed the room in a voice that surprised even me. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "I'm sorry this happened the way it did. Please drive home safely. No anger, no drama, just finality." That was when I knew he was going to be okay. We stepped outside into the evening air. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in soft golds and purples, almost mocking in its beauty. My son exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for months. "I feel stupid," he said quietly. I shook my head. "You feel free." "That's different." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "She was already planning my life like it was hers." "She told me," I replied. He turned sharply. "She said something to you?" I nodded. "Before the wedding. And again today." He didn't ask what. He already knew. We stood there in silence for a moment, listening to the muffled sounds of the reception hall behind us. Staff, cleaning up a celebration that would never be completed. Then the doors burst open. Vanessa. Her makeup was smudged now. Mascara traced dark lines down her cheeks. The perfect image had cracked completely. She marched toward us, heels clicking sharply against the stone. "You ruined my life," she said, pointing at me. My son stepped in front of her. "No, you did." She turned on him, desperation pouring out now. "I loved you." "You loved what I could give you," he replied. "That's not the same thing." She looked around wildly, like someone searching for an exit in a room that no longer had doors. "You embarrassed me," she said. "In front of everyone." I finally spoke. "You threatened to erase me from my son's life," I said calmly. "In front of no one." "You didn't seem embarrassed then." Her mouth opened. No words came out. Security appeared behind her, not aggressive, just present. "Ma'am," one of them said gently, "we'll need you to leave the premises." She laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "Fine. I don't want to be here anyway." She turned back to my son one last time. "You'll regret this," she said. "He'll never forgive you." My son didn't flinch. "I already forgive myself," he replied. She walked away, and that should have been the end. It wasn't. The next morning, my phone rang at 6:30. It was my son. "She's locked me out of the house," he said. I was already sitting up. "What?" "The smart locks. The joint accounts. Everything. She changed the passwords overnight." "Of course she did." "She also posted," he added quietly. I sighed. "Posted what?" "A story. A long one. About emotional abuse. About control. About how you humiliated her and forced me to choose." I closed my eyes. This was her last card, and she was playing it loudly. By noon, the messages started. Friends asking questions. Co-workers checking in. Distant relatives sending cautious, "Hope you're okay." Texts that were really requests for gossip. Vanessa's version spread fast. In her telling, she was the victim. A bride ambushed. A woman silenced by a manipulative father-in-law and a weak man who couldn't stand up to him. She tagged people. Shared cropped screenshots. Left out dates. Context, tone. She was good at this. Very good. My son came over that afternoon exhausted. "I don't want to fight online," he said. "I just want it to stop." I nodded. "Then don't fight." He frowned. "What do you mean?" I turned my laptop toward him. The PowerPoint was still open, but this time there was more. "You saved everything," he realized. "I taught you to," I replied. He stared at the screen as I scrolled. Bank records, property documents, time-stamped messages, a notarized prenup draft. She'd refused to sign, ironically claiming it showed a lack of trust. "She tried to rush the marriage before legal review," he murmured. "Yes," I said. "And she didn't expect consequences." He swallowed. "What do we do?" I closed the laptop. Nothing, I said. We let the truth do what it always does. Wait patiently. 3 days later, Vanessa's lawyer called. The tone was different now. Careful, measured. There were questions about asset separation, about public statements, about potential defamation. I answered politely. I answered honestly. I forwarded documents. The call ended quickly. The next day, Vanessa deleted her posts. All of them. No explanation. No apology. Just gone. The legal process was messy but brief. Because facts don't argue. They don't need to. Vanessa walked away with exactly what she brought into the relationship. Nothing more. No $120,000. No house. No leverage. What she did get was something she couldn't return. A reputation. Weeks passed. The story traveled, quietly now, but persistently. People talk. They always do. Vanessa's name became a warning in certain circles, a cautionary tale. She stopped answering calls, stopped showing up to events, moved eventually. My son focused on healing. He started therapy, took a leave from work, reconnected with friends he'd slowly drifted away from without realizing why. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the trees, he said something I'll never forget. I thought love meant giving everything, he said. I didn't realize it also meant being allowed to keep yourself. I nodded. That's how you know it's real. He smiled then. A genuine one. The kind I hadn't seen in a long time. But life has a way of circling back. And Vanessa wasn't finished making mistakes. Not yet. 6 months passed. Not the dramatic kind. No shouting, no headlines, no sudden revelations. Just time. The slow, honest kind that heals some things and exposes others. My son rebuilt his life carefully, like someone repairing a house after a fire. He didn't rush into anything new. He didn't pretend he wasn't hurt. He learned how to sit with silence again, how to trust his own instincts. We had dinner together once a week. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we didn't. Both felt good. And Vanessa? She vanished. At least, that's what it looked like on the surface. It started with an email from someone I didn't recognize. Subject line, I think you should know. I hesitated before opening it. Life had finally settled. Peace had returned. Part of me didn't want to disturb it. But something told me this wasn't random. The sender introduced herself as Lydia. She'd worked with Vanessa at a consulting firm across state lines. Not recently, currently. Her message was short, careful, almost apologetic. I attended a financial ethics seminar last week. During a case study presentation, I recognized patterns, language, behavior. Then I recognized the name. Attached was a document, a formal complaint, not against my son, against Vanessa. The report outlined a series of incidents. Misrepresentation of personal assets. Pressure tactics involving relationships. Attempts to access client-controlled funds. Repeated boundary violations framed as partnership expectations. It was professional, dry, damning. Lydia ended the email with one line. Your PowerPoint didn't surprise me. It confirmed things many of us suspected but couldn't prove. I closed my laptop and sat back. Karma doesn't rush. It waits until you think you're safe. A week later, my son received a message from Vanessa. Her name on his phone felt strange now, like seeing a ghost in daylight. He stared at it for a long time before opening it. I don't want to reply, he said. You don't have to, I told him. He opened it anyway. I know I don't deserve this, but I need to talk. I'm in trouble. No apology. No accountability. Just need. He exhaled slowly. She hasn't changed. No, I agreed. She's just cornered. They met in a public place, a cafe near the courthouse. Neutral ground. Cameras everywhere. I didn't go with him. This was his chapter now. Later that evening, he came home and sat across from me, eyes tired but clear. She wanted help, he said. Money, a character statement. She said everything fell apart after the wedding. I waited. She lost her job, he continued. Then another offer. Then another. People talk, Dad. Employers check. What did you say? I asked. He smiled faintly. I told her I hope she figures things out, and that I'm done rescuing people who push me into fires. I felt something loosen in my chest. Pride, maybe. Relief. Closure. Vanessa's downfall wasn't loud. No arrests. No viral videos. Just doors quietly closing. She applied for positions she would have landed easily a year earlier. She didn't even get callbacks. Background checks revealed concerns. References declined to respond. Her social circle thinned. Invitations stopped. Messages went unanswered. The same charm she once used to control rooms now worked against her. People recognized it too late, and never again. The irony was almost poetic. She hadn't lost money. She'd lost access. One evening, my son asked me something unexpected. "Why didn't you warn me earlier?" he said. Before everything blew up, I considered it carefully. "Because warnings don't change people," I said. "Experiences do. And you needed to see her clearly, with your own eyes." He nodded. "You trusted me to choose myself." "Yes," I said, "and you did." A year after the wedding that wasn't, my son remarried. Small ceremony, quiet venue, no spectacle. I watched him say his vows with someone who stood beside him. Not in front, not behind. Someone who listened more than she spoke. Someone who never once asked what he earned or what he'd inherit. After the ceremony, she hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for raising him the way you did." That was enough. As for Vanessa, I heard one final update through a mutual acquaintance. She'd moved again, new city. New name on social media, new beginning. But the same pattern followed her. It always does. Because when someone believes people are resources, they never understand why they keep ending up alone. On the anniversary of the wedding day, my son and I sat together watching the sunset. "Do you regret it?" he asked. Exposing her like that? I thought about the whisper, the threat, the certainty in her voice. "No," I said. "I regret that she believed kindness was weakness." He smiled. "She thought she was erasing you." I smiled back. "She forgot something important." "What's that?" "I was the one who taught you how to stand." Some people think revenge is loud, public, cruel, but real justice? Real justice is calm, patient, precise. It doesn't raise its voice. It waits for the truth to speak. And when it does, everyone listens.